Hello everyone and welcome back to Southern Wealth. I hope you guys are doing very well. If you do enjoy the content, please consider dropping that like and subscribe. As you guys know, it's the only thing that I ask. Today I plan on having a little bit of a shorter video. I think really the only big development is the expected trade deals that now seem much more imminent than they used to be. One of the good things is I think the market's a little bit tired of the US administration announcing these supposed trade deals and then nothing really happens. But this time around, the framework that has been agreed between US and China has been confirmed by both sides. So that part is very important. That's by far the most complex one because not only you have the two largest economies, but you have the two largest trading partners and rivals, if you will, at the same time. So it's quite complex. I think the US at the upper end in terms of timing. If you look at the factory activity in China, if you look at the number of orders, number of closures, etc., everything was jumping quite aggressively, particularly in May of 2025. And why? Because China has been facing deflation since for about 2 years, and the US is their number one customer. So what happens to you if you have major issues of overcapacity and you lose your number one customer? In effect, your overcapacity now just got magnified by 100. And I disagree with when people say, oh, the US, when you have a democracy, those people are in much more pressure because, they have elections, right? So if they mess up, they will be voted out of office. And I would say, to a certain degree, that's true. The democracies, in that sense, face bigger issues than any form of dictatorship until things have been going not so great in China for quite some time. If you look at any measurable data, what's happening in the property market is actually worse, substantially worse than 2008 in the US. Now, obviously, all the information you got from China, it's already quite sanitized, if you want to, for lack of a better term. But it's very clear they've been struggling. And at some point, the impact or the pressure on the dictatorship is actually quite substantially bigger than in democracies, because at some point, the way that you lose your dictator is usually by, well, he was alive and all of a sudden he is not, kind of deal, or he was alive and all of a sudden he's put in prison for a crime that all of a sudden people found and you never see that person again. So yes, in global terms, people under democracies face much bigger scrutiny and it's much higher pressure until things get bad enough that actually it's worse for the dictator, because now it's their life actually that is on the line, not just getting voted out of office, which, you can be voted out of office and you go your merry life and you build your families, you and your family's life, and you can become very wealthy despite losing all that you lost in politics. But in case of dictatorships, you can end up, not being able to do that. Let me put it that way. So that part is positive. I've always said this, that India has the opportunity to be the biggest winner, because it's India's golden opportunity to overtake China. And it's a democracy which the West prefers, rather than dealing with, dictatorships which end up not working out great. And also India has kind of a little bit of a more cultural linkage to the West. So I would say that indeed, if the trade agreement with India is very good, that can be very, very relevant. Then I think the only country really struggling at the moment is Canada. Now there was the digital taxes that Canada was going to charge US, American, the large multinationals, think Amazon, Microsoft, the like, right? And of course, Trump was not happy at all about it. And they said, look, negotiations over, blah, blah, blah. But we know the story. Negotiations are over until they are not over as soon as whatever is the big hurdle gets taken out. Then all of a sudden the negotiations are back on, and we've been all as allies, and we are close partners, and we are close countries, blah, blah, blah. Canada has been, out of the developed countries, the slowest growing economy in the past 10 years. It's been completely destroyed by Trudeau's administration. That's why his approval rating was 16%. They basically 73% of their exports goes to the US. The Canadian dollar has lost 40% versus the dollar over 10 years. And there's a lot of conversations about separatists within the oil-rich area of Canada that they potentially could separate from Canada altogether. Now, if you ask me, do I think that's going to happen? Probably not, but it's already making harder, a very hard situation already. My feeling, pure speculation, I have no private information, is that the Canada will push back some of the things that they've said and that they were proposing, and I think we're gonna end up with a deal between US and Canada, and probably it's gonna be better than most people think. But Mexico is taking the advantage and stepping up also as a partner to the US, is now actually a bigger partner, trading partner than Canada. So it's now the number 2. So this has been my point also. It's important also to mention this because we have to see this in real life. This has been also my point about, because people were questioning, why don't just go after China and leave your allies alone? I said, no, you have to do it with all of them, because then you create, how can I say this? Then you create the incentive to be first than your competitors, particularly in the region. So for example, it's important for the UK to do it first before the European Union. It's important for Mexico to do it first and Canada does it. It's important for India to do it before China does it. You see what I mean? It's important that South Korea does it before Vietnam does it, etc., etc. So these kind of things are very important because you're kind of creating the necessity on people's minds. My feeling is this. For countries that are really not important in the overall trade with the US, I think they're going to get slapped with a 10-15% tariff, something like that. Then I think the deals will be done with, UK has already been the case, but I think Canada and Mexico eventually will work out. China, Japan, South Korea, India. Japan is struggling quite a bit, so they're also in a difficult position. And by the way, on the European Union, I just saw this article coming up where European Union officials were saying that they would be keen to buy American weapons, basically to build out their defense plans. We've talked about this here for months. 3 things with Europe. What have we said? Energy deal, that's going to happen. That's going to be in that trade deal. So energy, defense, and the third one was energy, defense, and I think the third one was a little bit on the agriculture side. But to me, the big focus will be weapons and energy, meaning off-take agreements, long-term off-take agreements in which the European Union says we're going to buy 100 billion more of American energy, oil and gas, LNG, blah, 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 every single year. And with this, once again, because I've said this before, the S&P has hit all-time highs. Does this matter? No, really. Liquidity is all that matters. And liquidity is continuing to rise. And it seems that it's going to continue to rise for quite some time. With the trade deals starting to happen, now the Fed has no excuse to not cut rates, which is going to be another source of liquidity on top of the existing ones. But basically, here we are with risk assets ending up to follow global liquidity. Are things better now than they were in the beginning of the year? I don't think so. You have the economic data is all worse. You've had conflicts in the Middle East. You've had tariffs and bad blood between nations. Yet, here we are at new all-time highs. it seems like liquidity over extended periods of time is all that matters. Now we can have noises. Short-term noise here, short-term noise there, problem here, problem there. We can have it. But at the end of the day, we end up going and tracking global liquidity. Now the thing is, now it's easy to say because we are at new all-time highs. But the point was, when the whole thing was crashing back in April, and everybody was saying it's going to go much lower and all of this kind of stuff, and I was saying, look guys, we had a period where financial conditions got very tight back in the fourth quarter of 2024, and we saw those effects in the first quarter of 2025, and it went a little bit into April because of the short-term problem with the tariffs. But between January and March 2025, particularly between February and late March 2025, liquidity and financial conditions were improving dramatically. And my point was, if we're not at the bottom, we are very close. I don't see a way in which liquidity is exploding this way and things keep on collapsing. But I said it when we are going down, 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 down. You see, you know who is now saying it? A lot of YouTubers like CryptoBanner, but not at the time. At the time, he was explaining why Trump was intentionally crashing the market to bring the yields down, and he was going to keep on crashing the market until yields came down to a satisfactory level. What happened? Yields shot up, and the market shot up as well. So that's the complete opposite of what CryptoBanter said. And then he comes back at the end and says, oh, of course we are tracking global liquidity, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but you weren't saying that at the bottom. You were saying something very different. You're making the case of why we're going to keep on going lower until yields came down. You see, this is the problem. But either that video is deleted or got lost in the many videos published. I mean, I'm not picking on him in particular. He's just one of many. It's just one of many. It's very hard. There was a person who remained very truthful to its thesis, which was Raoul Pal. He was saying the same thing as I was saying. And he kept on it even when things looked very shaky. So it's important to keep those things in mind. Now, when it comes to crypto, it's the same. I think we're going to eventually follow the liquidity like we always do. I think we're going to hit new all-time highs sooner than people expect. And I think there's going to be a point. I've told you this before. There's going to be a point where Bitcoin's going to fall. Listen, in my view, this is just my opinion. But I have the feeling that one day Bitcoin's going to fall to, let's call it 130K. And it will feel extremely bearish. Yet, if I tell anybody that Bitcoin's going to go to 130K, everybody throws a party. Again, they don't learn. Same thing. When Bitcoin recently was at 75, getting to 90 was amazing. Now, dropping to 104 is, oh my God, this is terrible. I hate it. It is what it is. When it comes to altcoins, I'm starting to see a lot of channels, including CryptoBanter, of course, saying that the altcoin season is now in crypto stocks, coin, MicroStrategy, etc. And there's not going to be any altcoin season this time around. Good. I like that they think that way. Bitcoin particularly follows liquidity, but Ethereum and altcoins a lot follow also business cycle quite a bit. So the business cycle has been weak. We need it to be strong. For example, ISM has been negative in 30 months. The worst of the financial crisis was 18 months. So we've been in bad position. But that should improve as the Fed cut rates and as the market prices those Fed cuts, which is more important than the actual cuts, and when the tax bill goes through, etc. So, and when the trade deals are signed and all of these things. So these things should pick up. And then you're going to see these same people that have been trying to tell you that there's not going to be an altcoin season. They will say, oh, these are the top 20 coins that I'm buying. Join my private group to know exactly what I'm buying in preparation of this never seen before altcoin season. Wait for it. In a couple of months, 2 or 3 months, you're going to see these written in all these channels. Remember who's telling you. There's a guy in Discover Crypto that said there's not going to be an altcoin season, and Ranoon and CryptoBanner has said there's not going to be an altcoin season. So when they come back and tell you the top 10 cryptos, altcoins, they're going to do 100x, you remember they are just talking about it because most likely at that time altcoins are very popular and they want to farm their audience, period. And with that, thank you very much for your support, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one and enjoy the rest of your weekend.